I said, I can't stay. I can't stay with this judge because he's not even listening to a pediatrician. I got to get out. So I started looking for a job back home. And I was able to get a job, petitioned the court. They said, you know what, since you're not going to be living here, Dad doesn't live here, sure, we'll transfer it. Texas can have this. This is fine.
Yeah, they're going to dump this leaky bag of shit as fast as they can.
This is going to hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
So I applied, and the judge, granted the TRO and said, it's a piece of paper. It's not going to stop a knife. It's not going to stop a bullet. It's just a piece of paper. I said, I understand. And he said, I also think it's good. And he ordered that I went through domestic violence counseling as well, which is where I started learning about the cyclical nature of abuse and trigger points, because what I would do without realizing what I was doing, it was a matter of, I know there's going to be a beating coming. I can't control that, but I can control when it happens.
So did it happen?
It would. So whenever I would feel strong, I'd push the buttons and say, let's do this while I'm feeling strong, like I can stand and fight, because I don't want to get caught in a weak moment.
So you have a temporary restraining order, and he's beating you?
No, this was before the TRO.
Oh, okay, all right.
And
I
so,
got you.
but I learned about all of this through the domestic violence classes.
You're starting to take some of your power back.
I'm starting to take some of that back, and we're talking to the counselor, talking to the other ladies, telling them about the situation, telling them about how I'm, trying to separate my money and secure my funds and this, that, and the other. And they're listening to my story, and everybody's quiet. And the leader of the group said, ladies? And one of the women said, she'll be lucky if she's alive this time next year. And they put me into, it's called the DIVERT program, which is a domestic violence enhanced response team. And they gave me a special pager beeper type thing that all I had to do is push a button, and they would dispatch the police immediately, because I was at what they would say was a high risk for fatality. And so we lived like that for a little while. And I found, when I was cleaning out my papers from the house, because they took him out and had an officer with him, and I was getting my stuff, some stuff that exposed him and how he had tampered with his military records and covered this up and covered that, and actually went to the main repository at Randolph Air Force Base and was able to steal records out of his official file, so that there were misconduct issues that were now, there was no proof of them, except he kept a copy of it. And that is what allowed him to get his promotion to major.
Thank God criminals are dumb.
And so, was I being a little spiteful? Yeah. I turned him over to a CO. Here comes the court-martial. And then the domestic violence stuff gets tossed on top of the court-martial. And so he's under, he gets court-martialed. He's found guilty. He's under house arrest until they can take him. They actually sent him to Leavenworth. And I remember my mom saying the weekend before he was set to go, she said, I don't want you guys in that house alone. Go stay with friends. So we did. We went up to Denver. Now we have an alarm. I had a security alarm on my house. My brother was very...
Your house in Colorado Springs.
Yes. My brother was really upset with everything that was going on. He said, I'm paying for this. I want you safe, and I want you to use it all of the time. And I said, okay. About 3 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call from Colorado Springs Police Department saying, we're at your residence. Your alarm's gone off. They weren't able to get you at the home phone. I had my friend's phone as an emergency number. And they said, somebody's been in your house. It doesn't look like anything's been disturbed or taken. We understand there's a restraining order. We would like for you to come down tomorrow. We'll walk through with you. What you need to know is that the alarm was not triggered coming in. It was deliberately triggered upon exit. And,
I think he wanted you to know that he can
he'd
get
been
you.
there. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the way he did it was I went up, nothing was taken, but I have this cordial set that my aunt had given me. And it was in my bedroom, set up on a dresser, and one glass was turned upside down for those who are gone but not forgotten. Mm-hmm. And that was it. I said, I know exactly who did this.
But they were never able to prove it was him.
No.
But,
And then,
but you know.
but you know. And then the next day, they confirmed he was gone, and he spent some time in Leavenworth.
And you get to start your new life. Once you stood up to him, though, and he held so much power over you, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Where he was able to manipulate you in certain ways, but once you started taking that power back, and how long did it take where he didn't hold that power over you anymore?
A while, because after he got out of Leavenworth, then the actual divorce proceedings had begun. The judge bifurcated the case, so the divorce was granted, the custody issue lingered. He was now getting occasional unsupervised visits, and our daughter would come back, and she would be talking about strange things that would go on between the two of them. And things like baby carrots being inserted into certain areas.
Oh, my God.
And so I took her to the pediatrician. The pediatrician had physical findings. We would go to the court. It's almost like you can't believe it actually happened. The judge that was assigned the custody case didn't want to hear it, wouldn't put the pediatrician on the stand. And I couldn't figure it out. And it was looking really bad. Now, he had since moved from Colorado to Ohio and was trying to get 50-50 parenting time. This child is 3, okay? How do you do 50-50 parenting time between 2 states with a 3-year-old? And I said, I can't stay. I can't stay with this judge because he's not even listening to a pediatrician. I got to get out. So I started looking for a job back home. And I was able to get a job, petitioned the court. They said, you know what, since you're not going to be living here, Dad doesn't live here, sure, we'll transfer it. Texas can have this. This is fine.
Yeah, they're going to dump this leaky bag of shit as fast as they can.
So the job I got, and you'll like this, was working as a legal secretary for the civil division of the district attorney's office in my home county. And I figured if it continues, then I know that if a special prosecutor is going to be needed, since I'm working for the DA's office, that they're going to go for the top criminal defense attorney. So I'm already starting to lay out my groundwork to protect us. And my daughter would go to daycare after she would have, because he would actually make a point of flying down to Texas to be able to spend
Did he
time
get
with her.
dishonorably discharged?
He did.
Okay.
He did. And she would have these stories that she would tell. She wasn't telling me. She was telling other kids in her daycare. She was telling her teachers. One time she was with the civil district attorney chief, my boss. She was in her office, and
Did they finally believe you?
they did.
They did.
Texas believed me.
Which is odd because Texas is one of the few states in the union that is, from what I understand, is more, they lean towards the male a little bit
Yeah.
more. Like most states in the union lean towards the female, but Texas seems to go the other way. So for you to do that, it must have been some hard evidence. So when you finally get free of this guy, was he arrested?
They took it to grand jury. He was indicted. It was going to go to trial, and it's very interesting because they appointed the special prosecutor, and within an hour of the special prosecutor being appointed, his office actually got a phone call from my then ex-husband to see if he could retain his services for this. And it took a while, but at that time, my daughter was in therapy, and the therapist said to the special prosecutor, this cannot go to trial. This time, she's 4 years old. He's going to have a right to face his accuser. And they were afraid that as a 4-year-old, she would choke, not be able to testify, and the therapist thought this was even worse, was she musters up the ability to testify, and nobody believes her. And that would have destroyed her. And so the prosecutor took that under advisement and offered him a plea and made sure I was okay with that. And I would rather my daughter be safe. So we were good with that. And he lost custody, obviously. His parental rights were terminated.
Still to this day?
To this day. And he was to have no contact with her until she turned 18.
Did he ever contact her?
Not until after she turned 18.
So the damage on something like this has ripple effects.
Yes.
Now, here's what I always hate. And when I was dating, I always used to, because I always ended up doing time for other people's crimes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure your partners thereafter also did time for this person's crime. Because your trust is destroyed. And this is why you were a cynic, because duh, you got stabbed with an ice pick with a implement from the 1920s. Do you think that'll ever go away?
No.
Now your ability, you almost have superpowers. Now, you understand that, right? I'm going to explain this to you. You have a superpower, and I guarantee you have a superpower. How many times have you been in a social gathering and you've seen a woman who is in where you were, and you've been able to look at them and you've been able to identify, say, something right here. Mm-hmm. Is that true? Now, how do I know that? Because we've never discussed that. Because you have that superpower. So suffering gives you certain superpowers to identify that same type of suffering in other people.
Yeah.
And that's your power. So I'll put it to you this way. So the guy who shot at me, I used to hate him. Mm-hmm. Over time, I became very empathetic towards him. And I said, you know what? You put me right in the spot that I was supposed to be in. This guy, and we won't even say his name because we won't give him any type of power in here. But this guy, think about what he did. You should be thanking him. Think about what he did. He brought you to Pat, and Pat's a wonderful man.
Yes, he is.
He brought you to where you are in your life right now. Mm-hmm. He brought you, are you still close with your daughter?
Yes.
Okay. He brought you closer to your daughter. He gave you strength that you could not obtain on your own.
True.
So if you turn his power on its ear and start, and whatever vengeance, whatever fear you have, and it becomes empathy, all of a sudden all the power he has over you or had over you is gone. And you start pitying him. And then you start looking at, you know what? It was awful. It was horrible what you put me through, but you put me right in the spot that I was supposed to be, right where I was supposed to belong.
Yeah.
Is that a fair statement?
I think that's a very fair statement. You know, I was able to get to the point where I forgave him for what he did to me. I can't forgive him for what he did to our daughter.
Fair enough.
But that's not mine to forgive.
Now, your daughter have any ripple effects?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Even though she was so young that it's
Oh, yeah.
it's a distant memory, that stuff gets ingrained into your DNA.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, jeez. Why do parents, like, some people just don't deserve to be, they don't
Yeah.
deserve the pleasure of being a parent.
Yeah. It was devastating. I mean, I even had to, before Colorado fully transferred everything down, I actually had to pay for my daughter's therapist in Texas, my therapist in Texas, to go to Colorado to testify on our behalves. And I had to pay for a court-appointed psychologist to do a psych eval on me and on my daughter to make sure that I'm not the crazy one. And our lovely narcissist, as only narcissists can do, said, he can evaluate me too. And I'll show you it's not me. And so they did. And they said, no, the daughter is highly intelligent. She is afraid of the father. There's no evidence it's because of anything that mom's doing. It's an organic fear within her. Mom, she's struggling, but she's getting there. She's also an intelligent person. She's got situational depression, which is understandable because she's making reports that abuse is happening to her child and nobody's believing her, and she's being rendered helpless.
It's like you're standing in a crowd screaming and nobody's listening.
So, of course, she's going to have some depression and anxiety and just general issue. And I said, but Dad, I've read about him, never actually met one till now, is a narcissist, but he's also a psychopath and a sociopath. And I'm like, okay, I can pick him. I went for a hat trick right
Sorry,
off the
Pat.
bat.
Sorry, Pat. I didn't mean to bring that out. I apologize. But your life is beautiful on so many different levels now.
Absolutely.
And without all this stuff, you would have never came to New Jersey.
That's
you never
true.
found any of this stuff. But that power that you have in order to identify in other people, where that angel who took you in the garage and did that for you, have you done that to somebody else?
I have. I try to help people as much as I can.
Because
Whether.
you owe. I know
Absolutely.
I know.
Oh,
you,
absolutely.
I know you've been through enough where you think there's nothing in this world for free.
Right.
Okay, you owe that debt to somebody else
Absolutely.
to get them out,
Absolutely.
and that's your path to healing.
Absolutely.
So, is there any? We're coming to the end of this thing here. Is there anything you want to plug? This story is just—it's crazy. It's honestly crazy. But I want to make sure people know how to find you, especially if they're in a place where even I hope nobody's in a place like this, but I know there are, where somebody can find you and reach out to you so you can give them some guidance or a suggestion or just an ear to listen to.
Absolutely. I'm on Instagram. It's Yvonne.go_figure, I believe.
We'll have a link to that
We'll
in our
have a
show.
link.
Yeah, in our show notes.
I don't go to myself very often on Instagram. But you can reach out to me through there.
And if you can't find Yvonne, reach out to me. I will get you in contact with her.
Absolutely.
So like I said, we're coming to the end of this thing here. Our hour here is almost up. And you've been through an enormous, like you got a crazy story. And I know this is the first show you've ever done. So you got a crazy story. But it had to teach you something. Because if it didn't teach you something, it's really a wasted event in your life. What do you think going through all this stuff, this suffering of a narcissist or narcissism has taught you?
Dig the hole first. No. You got to keep your eyes open, and you got to trust your gut. And if it doesn't feel right, there's a reason for it. And nobody deserves to be under anybody's thumb. It's not living. You're not going to fix them. You're not going to make it better. If they don't want to improve themselves, there's nothing you can do about it. The only thing you can do is help yourself and be stronger. Talk to somebody. Whether it's a friend, a stranger, a priest, a police officer, the librarian, it doesn't matter. Talk to somebody. Because you can't do it alone.
And you don't have to. That's the beautiful thing. You know, one of the things I always talk about is be buffalo, not cattle.
Yes.
Right? You've heard me say this. Cattle, when the storm hits the prairie, will scatter.
Right.
That's not where we want to be as human beings. We want to be buffalo. Buffalo, instinctually, when the storm hits, they herd up. They will. Yep. There's actual pictures of it, and it's a beautiful thing.
It is.
And only those people who have been through real trauma will know the meaning of that, because they are in the outer rims of that circle, of that herd. I can't thank you enough for telling that story. It was horrifying.
Thank you.
But it was powerful.
Thank you. I'm here. If I can help anybody, I'm here.
I think you just did. Now I got to stop. No, I'm not even. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast, the suffering of narcissism with Yvonne Elwood. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. We all have blind spots. No always means no. Tom. Who has an ice pick anymore? You can't change somebody. Narcissists have possessions, not relationships. Nobody deserves to be under anybody's thumb. But most importantly, just like you, take your power back.
Absolutely.
And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson. And, of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. And when that narcissist tells you, come this way, everything you need, I can provide, you turn around, you look them right in the eye, and what do you say? You say, not today.